I've known Brandon Box, a prominent Southwest Florida banker, for more than 10 years, interviewing him about not only his bank, but the economy and trends he sees in the marketplace. Writing about these trends in the economy and what's coming next is one of the Business Observer's strengths. To read more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Brandon Box, executive vice president for Florida commercial banking at Cogent Bank. Brandon, welcome and thanks for being here.
Excited to be here. I love all the podcasts. I've watched a bunch of episodes and grateful that you chose me to be a guest today.
I'm excited to get into it and talk about leadership, and you and I have had conversations about leadership, so I want to hear some of your insights, but I have to give a shout out to you. Banking's a very competitive field, as everybody knows, but you are one of the absolute nicest bankers I have ever met and encountered, and I'm going to share with the audience. I don't know if you remember this to the level that I do. A really amazing story about Brandon, who is an alumni of the Business Observer's 40 Under 40 issue. And I don't remember the year, but it was several years ago. It was about 7 or 8 years ago. And we had some issues with our photographer that day getting things ready. And it just took a really long time to get everything going. And there were some impatient people. And you volunteered, Brandon, to be the last person in the photo shoot. So you waited around for, 3 hours. It was really long. It was a brutal day. So I'm thanking you publicly for being so gracious during that miserable day.
Well, I don't even remember that, so it must have not been a big deal to me, but glad it made an impact for you guys. And y'all do such a great job. We love having you as a media partner.
Yes.
And obviously the territory y'all cover is our territory. So you do a great job in the community and
thank you.
Business publications.
Thank you. But I stuck out to me how gracious you were. Okay, we're going to get into it. We're going to start with 3 quick hit questions, get the audience to know you a little bit. What is the longest plane ride you've ever been on?
That was actually this January, and it was about 16 hours from Atlanta, Georgia to Seoul, South Korea, and it was a long flight.
Yes, 16 hours. That sounds like a probably an amazing trip, though.
Great trip, but going against the Gulf Stream winds, it's a long flight. Yeah,
long flight. Okay, how many? Well, maybe something on the flight. How many hours of sleep do you need a night so that you're not cranky the next day?
I would tell you 7.5. My wife might tell you 9, but I'm definitely a guy that needs to sleep. My mom was like that. Some function off 3-4 hours a night. No way, not for me. I got to get my sleep, and I'm a routine guy. I like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. I love my routines.
Well, that's so important, right? I mean, and actually that's the last question I'm going to ask you on this is, when you're at your best, what is your morning routine? What gets you going in the day, your morning routine?
My best is wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, get there about 5:20, do a workout till about 7, come home, quickly change, drop my daughter off at school, and I'm at the office by 7:45 or 8 a.m. and put in a full day after that. But I feel like with a morning workout, just mentally, I don't have the brain fog. I'm on my game until about 2 p.m. Then I start getting a little bit tired. Always try to have the toughest meetings in the morning when you're fresh.
Yeah. And when you're working out, are you a music guy? Are you like not thinking work, doing work things, or do you combine work with the workout?
There's definitely some answering emails on the treadmill and trying to clean up the inbox so you start when you get to the office. But when I'm actually working out, I do like music, big Spotify fan. I like podcasts. It kind of depends on the mood, what I'm doing for the day, but it changes a little bit every day. But I'm definitely an earbuds guy because I'm not there to socialize, although you do socialize. But I'm to get myself ready for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, the earbuds in. I get it. All right, excellent, Brandon. Moving on a little bit to your career before we get into leadership. Tell us about your banking career and kind of how and why you got into this field.
Yeah, so I actually kind of fell into banking, which I think most people probably under the age of 50 would tell you, because there's not a lot of training programs anymore in our industry. It's a big challenge. But I was actually in graduate school at LSU in between my first and second year, and there was a company in town or on campus recruiting. That company was called IberiaBank, which is no longer around. But they were recruiting just in the local Baton Rouge market for some part-time interns. And so I was lucky enough to just grab that job as a college job, and some great folks, great mentors. And really, after graduation, was interviewing with several other companies and thought I might switch careers. Had a couple of different offers. And at the end of the day, I just loved who I worked with at Iberia and decided to stay on with them, and did that for a couple of years before ultimately moving to Florida with the company. So I kind of fell into it, but I'm grateful every day that I did, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, and you weren't like growing up thinking I'm going to be a banker, bringing a briefcase to school at 5 years old and things like that. It was more accidental at college.
Yep, no bankers in the family. My great grandfather actually started a bank in Texas, but it wasn't really in my realm of thinking growing up. And when you grow up, you think about a bank being just a branch because that's what you know and what you've used. But you don't really think, and I think most people, young people, don't realize that there's so much more to banking. You know, there's all the same departments that are in a big company: marketing and HR and operations and cybersecurity and all those things. But commercial banking is where I started, and that's been a really fun journey because you work with new businesses every day.
Yeah. Yeah, our jobs are similar in that. And I've talked to other people in your position where it's a window into somebody else's life every day, whether it's a manufacturer, a tech company. I mean, you're getting into the weeds more than I am. We're more surface level, but it's similar in that it's pretty cool. You get to talk to these interesting people.
It's amazing how many different ways people can make money in this country and how successful they can be no matter what the industry is. It's incredible opportunity to just chat and learn from so many different folks every day.
Yeah. So going back to IberiaBank, talk a little bit about, because I know you were with them here in the Southwest Florida, Naples-Fort Myers market. Bank's doing really well, like a lot of banks were. Recession hits, and IberiaBank was doing pretty well even for a little bit, and then obviously it didn't end the way that I think the bankers would have liked. Tell us about that experience where you were doing really well, and then you guys were fighting to survive.
Yeah, well, IberiaBank was definitely a strong bank back in '08, and that's what really gave us the opportunity to come to Florida. So early on in the failed bank cycle, if you remember back in those days, every Friday, I'm sure you were publishing which banks were failing. Iberia was a strong Louisiana-based bank, and there was a bank here in Naples, Florida called IberiaBank that the FDIC had just taken over on Friday, November 13th, 2009, and Iberia won that bid. And my boss in Baton Rouge at the time had the opportunity to come move to Florida and run the state. We had never been in Florida before. And I, of course, being one of the young bankers, was excited to just have a new adventure and come down here with them. So it was a great journey. We grew the bank a lot. And then back in, I believe it was 2019, got the Monday morning email that, hey, we're going to sell the bank to First Horizon, which is based out of Memphis, Tennessee. And that's when I really had the opportunity to help start Cogent. So it was kind of perfect timing and really meant to be. But IberiaBank was nothing but a great journey, learned a lot, and did well until the very end. So it was definitely an anomaly in the banking industry. But I think that's because Louisiana was fairly strong even through the Great Recession.
Yeah. And Cogent, tell us a little bit about sort of the elevator pitch of Cogent in the competitive banking world. What's the niche that makes Cogent stand out?
Yeah, so we started Cogent Bank back in 2018, bought a little failing bank outside of Orlando to purchase the charter. And that was really the genesis of the bank. We recapitalized it, new capital, new board of directors, new leadership team. And the roots of Cogent Bank goes back to Barnett Bank. Our chairman was a high-level executive at Barnett Bank back in the 90s. The son of the CEO of Barnett Bank is one of our founding board members, Daniel Rice. and we've just got a great team. But really, the vision when we were starting the bank was two things. Number one, diversification. We all learned that lesson going back to 2008. So we wanted to create a bank that was diversified, not just in a geographical standpoint in different markets around the state, but we wanted to create a bank that was diversified from a revenue standpoint as well. So whereas most smaller banks own a specific market or specific city, we knew from the beginning we wanted to be across the state. So we've got different economic drivers, different industries in each market, different bankers, and we can weather any sort of hiccup that may come our way. And the other big thing was to be a modern boutique bank. So you look at most smaller banks, and I think when someone uses the word community bank, it sort of means great people, not super sophisticated. And we really wanted the opposite. We wanted to be a true boutique bank. We want to have all the bells and whistles of the big guys, but we want the delivery model of the small guys. So, we've got the small bank service. You have our cell phone numbers. You call us. There's no 1-800 number. You get people every time. At the same time, we've got all the electronic banking, the treasury management products and services to fully integrate with our clients, to protect them with cybersecurity, to set them up so we can handle businesses of any size. So if you look at our industry, 15 years ago, there was about 750 banks headquartered in the state of Florida. Today, it's about 78. And that number is dwindling 5 or 10 a year. And so there's so much more opportunity than there used to be for small banks, but it's much harder to start a bank these days because you have to raise 4 times as much capital. The regulatory environment is different, and there's just fewer bank entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, so I've been at the Business Observer for 20 years, 2005. And when I started, we had a quarterly banking issue, obviously coming out every quarter. And we had 46 banks based in the 9 counties we cover, from Polk County south to Collier County. There's definitely, I don't know what the number is, but it's a lot less than 45. It's probably 5.
Yep. And for the first time in history, I think there's not even a bank headquartered in Collier County. There was a bank that sold recently. That was the last one. And so now there's no banks technically headquartered in Collier County. And I think that trend will continue. So we feel there's tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. So let's switch a little bit more to leadership. You and I have talked before about building teams as something that's really important to you. How have you at IberiaBank, Cogent, different stops in your career, what are some of the steps that you have taken to build high-performing, good quality teams at banks?
Yeah, I think because just what we talked about earlier, there's not a lot of training programs anymore. It really requires investing in people early in their careers and training them. What we've sort of pivoted to is finding people with the right attitudes and the right personality traits and really turning them into bankers, because what we do is fairly commoditized. Every bank makes loans, every bank takes deposits, but it's how you deliver that. And you can look at the characteristics of an individual and see, are they personable? Are they a problem solver? Are they willing to work hard? Are they willing to go above and beyond for their clients? Do they truly care? And so we've sort of taken the focus of, we don't necessarily, and we have some great, very tenured, longtime bankers in our markets, but we also have a good mix of younger bankers that want to learn, that want to grow, that want to be entrepreneurial, and we can teach them banking. We're not building rocket ships. We're going out there and we're delivering customer service and helping clients solve their financial problems.
Yeah. And as you grow with those teams, what do you look for in leaders? What are characteristics of good leaders?
To me, a leader has great emotional intelligence. And I've kind of learned over the years, we all know there's a difference between being a leader and being a manager. To me, a leader is someone that can pull people forward versus, a manager might push people. A leader gets people to follow them, and a manager tells people to follow them. And so to me, the emotional intelligence piece is the ability of someone to actually read a person, pick up on their nonverbal cues, pick up on their verbal cues, understanding what really drives that person. And a lot of people say, business is business, personal is personal. But I've learned a long time ago, you do have to create personal relationships to be a good leader, because people aren't going to feel a connection with you. They're not going to work the extra hour for you. They're not going to stay late if there's no personal relationship with you.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, right? That I've learned as a leader over the years because you want to be authentic and vulnerable, but you don't want to overshare. But you need them to know like about you because you want to know about them because you do care about them. So you have to kind of balance that. I mean, how have you adjusted your career over the years to that?
There's obviously, to your point, a big balance. It does have some difficult decisions that have to be made at times, and it is ultimately about the stakeholders of the company, whether that's shareholders, whether it's regulators, clients, and employees. But at the end of the day, you have to care about one another to work hard and to all row in the same direction. And I look at any company, and those companies that are all working together, whether it's an assembly line type structure or if they're all just championing the same mission, those organizations perform at a much higher level than the ones where everyone just does a job in a silo. And you're never going to get the synergies of a big company if you're not working together.
Yeah. So one other question about hiring. I want to talk about mentorship in a second. I know you're a passionate LSU Tiger. I mean, you must have hired. How many Gators and Knowles have you hired? And is it hard to hire a Gator?
Look, it really hurts being in Florida and having Florida and Florida State being our main sources for young employees. But you can see I've got my LSU baseball poster right here in the background. And you know what? Those are great schools, and my kids are being raised in Florida. So I love Florida schools. It's hard to believe, but I'm a Florida guy now.
Wow.
So
All right. Yeah, but you'll still, I think you're a Florida guy, but you'll always like the Tigers. If they're in the national championship game, I think you're pulling for the Tigers.
absolutely, Louisiana is a great place to be from. Great people, great culture. But Florida's a good place to be in banking.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. All right. Mentors, Brandon, tell us about who have been some of your mentors in your career in life and what are some leadership lessons you've learned from them?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of mentors over the years, and I sort of have a different take on mentorship. And, really my thought is you can learn from everyone. I try to be not someone else, but my goal is I want to be the best version of Brandon Box that I can be. And so I really approach that as I like learning from everyone that I meet, what I like about them, what I like about the way they operate. And I like finding in those same people the things that I don't want to be or that I don't want to do. So I can tell you that I've learned some amazing tools from my associates, from people of all levels of the bank on things that I need to improve upon in myself. But I've also learned from some of my most successful bosses over the years, things that they've done well, but just as importantly, things that maybe that I don't want to incorporate into my tool chest. So there's a lot of different mentors that I've had from the business world to my family life to just my personal life. It's fun to take and choose the best things from each of those folks you cross paths with in life and make them the part of who you are. So there's really nobody that I say I want to be that person. There's a lot of people that I say I want to be like them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have that cross. And one last question on leadership and sort of leadership, I guess, techniques, but how do you handle as a leader setbacks or things didn't go right? We talked about banking being competitive. You're not going to get every deal. You're not going to get every banker. And then obviously we talked before too about the recession. It was hard. I mean, bankers had some really hard times, obviously. So as a leader, how do you handle those setbacks and difficult situations?
It can be challenging just in any business. You're not always going to succeed. And I always try to bring myself back to the thought of if it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy, there'd be a lot more banks popping up. But really, I try to remind myself that those are the times that you actually learn the most. When you have a difficult situation, an impossible situation in your head, but you fight through it, those are the times you look back on your career and you say, wow, we did that. But to me, there's never really failure unless you stop trying. If you work really hard at something, even if you don't accomplish exactly what you were hoping to accomplish, the hope is you still move the ball forward. And what I've learned from just working with so many businesses over the years, if you just keep the legs moving, at some point you're going to catch a break. And it may be in a month, it may be in a year, it may be in 10 years. But, hard work in this country will lead to success at some point in the future. And if you just keep fighting, you're going to find a way to be successful.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because what you're saying, and his name has come up probably more times on this podcast than any other college football coach. And actually, he's a former LSU coach. When Nick Saban talks all the time, right, about process and keep moving forward. And, he's recruiting the next year's team 2 days after the national championship game. So it sounds like what you're saying is the process is important too, to get past those hurdles and obstacles.
Yeah, there's nobody better than Coach Saban. And as much as I love to hate him, I also love the guy because he put LSU football back on the map. He is exactly what you're talking about. He's a process guy, and it's do the little things right. And if you're doing the little things right every day, you're calling people back, you're doing what you say you're going to do, you're going to send a follow-up email, at some point, you're going to surpass the competition because they're not doing those things. So there's plenty of times that I failed and not done what I wanted to do, or we didn't win a piece of business that we wanted to win. But you know what? You shake that one off and you get to the next one. And it happens to everyone. Sometimes, when we're in our silo, we think nothing's going right today, or we're never going to crawl out of this hole. But the reality is, then you catch a lucky break if you're working hard.
Yep. Yeah. Lucky. Good things happen to people that are also hustling too, right? And that's where the luck comes in. So Brandon, as we're kind of in the second quarter here, 2025, what can we look forward to for Cogent Bank the rest of the year? What's new and exciting and top of mind for you?
Yeah, so we're always launching new divisions within our company. We've got about 15 different markets and divisions within our company to help customers. Really excited that in 2025, we're going to be opening a Bradenton and Sarasota market, and we received FDIC approval yesterday, actually. So we're real excited about that. We have a great team that's going to be coming on board, and we'll be sending our press release to the Business Observer here soon.
Excellent.
But, we just launched a triple net lease finance division, which will work with credit tenant real estate projects all around the country. So we're excited to get them on board. They're just ramping now. And, long term, our vision really is we want to be the best boutique bank in the state of Florida. And today we're in about 8 different markets around the state. So that would be Jacksonville, Ocala, Central Florida, Winter Park, Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, Bradenton, and then Naples and Fort Myers. And we really want to grow in the Panhandle. We want to grow on the Space Coast down through the East Coast.
Yeah.
So for us, it's all about finding the right people, the right bankers, the right leaders. But as we do that, you can expect us to continue expanding and continuing to help small businesses around the state.
Excellent. Well, Brandon Box, Executive Vice President for Florida Commercial Banking at Cogent Bank, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate all you do for Southwest Florida. Love following the podcast, and keep up the good work.
Great. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.